Hey gang, Mary Rose here. It's Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And I have the old actor's question queued up for you. And that question is this: what's my motivation? Now, as a writer, I think you know your motivation. Maybe you want to finish a great book. Maybe you want to finish a first draft. Maybe you just want to get some writing done today so you can hit your word count goals. But you are not exempt from this question of motivation because you're not an actor. Oh no. Your story is filled with characters. Let me say that again. Characters. You see what I did there? All of your characters, and especially the main character of the story you're writing, need motivation. They need a goal. They need objectives. And not only that, they need to take action in accordance with their motives. So they might have big goals, they might have little goals. Chances are they have both. And if they don't, well, they should, because here's our topic today. Motivated action is what drives storytelling. That is what I'm going to talk about. I am going to take a moment to introduce myself before we dive in, just in case you're new here or new to the live stream. I am Mary Rose Wood. I'm an author. I'm best known for writing middle grade fiction, which I just love to do. I'm working on a new book right now, and I just find it so delightful. All of the things that come along with writing middle grade fiction, which is, for those of you who might not know, it's fiction designed for the 8 to 12-year-old reader. Just kind of a great reader. Their minds aren't all made up yet about everything, and yet they are interested in all of it. It's a perfect little reader. So that's what my writing path looks like. Yours may look different. And I'm also the founder of Path of the Storyteller, which is my own platform for teaching and mentoring writers. The banner I just had up was encouraging you to get on the mailing list at pathofthestoryteller.com. And I hope that you will, because there's some good stuff there, I think, that can help you along your journey. One of the favorite things that I like to offer all of my YouTube viewers is a free download that is kind of fun. It is a workbook that contains 30 different writing prompts, which I created myself with a special goal in mind. Speaking of goals and objectives and motives, my motive for creating this download was to give you something that would not only encourage you to face the blank page with some consistency for, I don't know, maybe 30 days, maybe not in a row, but there are 30 different writing prompts. But more than that, to organize these writing prompts in such a way that they guide you through shaping a story according to story structure from beginning through the middle to the end. I have been a mentor to writers for a long time, and I know without question that story structure is one of the things that holds writers back the most. And that is why I created this freebie for you. So go ahead and get it. It's www.pathofthestoryteller.com/challenge. And let me know how you like it. Let me know how it's going. You can always leave a comment below the video. All right. One more bit of happy housekeeping. Let me wave hi to Anne. I know we've got some folks watching here live, but Anne has posted a comment, so I know that she's here. The rest of you, you feel free to say hi and let everybody know where you are zooming in from, tubing in from, Facebooking in from, wherever it is that you're coming from. It's always nice to see you here. All right, shall we dive in? Shall we dive into this topic about wanting, and more wanting? Let's do it. We all want stuff. We do. We may say we don't, but we do. It's the human condition to want stuff. We are beset with urges. And I don't necessarily mean only the big things. You know, we want stuff all the time on like a micro level. Sometimes we want things that we didn't even know we wanted. Like there's a pair of boots that I looked at once on the internet, and now every time I log on to anything, like the picture of that little pair of boots keeps popping up. It's making me want them, right? I didn't really want these boots much, but now I want them a great deal. So we might, want a pair of boots that we see advertised. If we're a student, we might want to pass a a difficult exam. Maybe we're going through high school algebra and we really want to pass the class so we don't have to do it again, or we don't have to go to summer school or something. So that might be something that we want. We might want to meet the great love of our lives and ride off happily into the sunset, just like they do on the rom-coms. That's something that a lot of people want. Maybe we just want a snack, right? Maybe we just want to have a little something to eat. It's the middle of the day. We're feeling peckish. We just want to go to the refrigerator and see what's in there. Maybe we want to win the lottery. Maybe we want to fall into an enormous sum of wealth and, see how that changes our lives. Now, you can see from what I'm describing that this sort of stream of wants is not necessarily particularly rational, right? It's not all like things that we should want or that are important to want. And in fact, we might want all of those things over the course of an hour, right? It's just this kind of rolling ball of wanting stuff. We might want all of them at the same time. I'm perfectly capable of wanting a pair of boots, a snack, and a winning lottery ticket at the same time, right? So I just want to, just introduce this idea that we all want stuff all the time. We want little silly things. We want sort of medium-sized things that might have some impact or some meaning or relevance to our lives. And we want grandiose things. We just want all this stuff all the time. Some of you might be Buddhists or enjoy studying Buddhist philosophy, as I do. And, there's a saying in Buddhism, one of the principles of Buddhism is to acknowledge that life is suffering. And that sounds like a downer, but if you consider it, if we're wanting stuff all the time, that state of perpetual desire is a form of suffering. We're never satisfied. This is very much the human condition. So anything that has to do with the human condition, as you probably have heard me say before on this YouTube channel, is of keen interest to novelists, because exploring the human condition is our job. We storytellers explore the human condition in our work, and we are very well qualified to do this because, as far as I know, all of us are human. That may not always be the case, but we will do the impact of AI on storytelling in a different YouTube live stream. If you guys are interested, you can let me know in the comments if that topic would interest you. All right. Now, if we accept the fact, and I hope we all do, that this like endless Ferris wheel of wanting things, big things, little things, silly things, fleeting things, long-term things, like it just is what's going on. It's our mental chatter, right? But if we don't do anything about any of that, it's just mental chatter. That's what it is, and that's what it will remain. If we start to take actions in pursuit of the things that we want, then something changes. They're no longer mental chatter. They're no longer just part of the endless wheel of wants. They have now become motivations. And thus we get back to the actor's question. What's my motivation? What is the want that causes me to act? Now, many have said this. It's not original to me, but there's a reason that actors are called actors, right? Characters do things. So when we start to do things in pursuit of our wants, now we have a motivation. Now, this is true in our lives. It's possible for us to go around wanting things, and never doing anything about it. This is not a happy situation if we find ourselves stuck in it. But as storytellers, we are responsible for creating how our characters deal with the things that they want. We're responsible for knowing what they want, kind of putting those wants inside them, since we are creating them, inventing them, making them up. And we're also in charge of deciding what they do about it. What actions are they going to take about the things they want? This is so much of a storyteller's job. Our characters, if they are truthful, if they are informed by our understanding of the nature of being human, they are just as full of wants as we are. The little wants, medium-sized wants, big wants, fleeting wants, silly wants, profound wants. They're full of them all. And so when I ask a writer, as I frequently do when presented with, a piece of work to workshop or critique or give advice or mentorship about, when I ask a writer, so what does your character want in this scene? And a confused hush falls over the room, then I have to say, okay, I already know where the trouble's going to be, even without having gone through the whole scene yet. I'm already kind of in touch with where's the trouble going to be. Because if you haven't thought through what your characters want and what they're going to do about what they want, then you've got some work to do yet. Okay. So that's the topic of today's talk. And I want to do a couple of things. I want to first talk about the different types of wants that might be useful to consider when you really do start to ask yourself the question of what your characters want. Then I want to talk about what turns a want into a motivation. And then third, I want to talk about how we can really deploy these ideas in our writing in a very practical way. All right. So that's what's on the docket. So please, stick with me to the end to get all the practical tips. So first of all, let's start out with the different kinds of wants, big wants and little wants. Let's think about that. A big want might be winning the lottery. That is a kind of a big want. It's a big life-changing outcome. A little want might be, I need a snack, right? These are both impulses. A big want might be, I want to be the first person in my family to finish college, get a college degree. That's a big want, right? It's a big want. And a little want might be, I want to go check my mail to see if a letter that I'm waiting for has arrived. So one of the difference between these sort of big wants and little wants is how many steps they might take to accomplish, right? Another difference between a big want and a little want is how much meaning it has. Getting a snack, if I'm hungry, it's good, but this isn't the life-changing thing. Like I could get a snack, I could wait for later to get a snack. It's a want, but it's not a want that's particularly resonant with meaning, right? It doesn't have like some kind of thematic heft about it. It's just me wanting a snack, right? It's actually kind of a form of procrastination most days. But a want like, I have a vision for my life and I'm grateful for my family's support and I want to be the first member of my family tree to, go to college and finish college and get a degree and kind of get into the professional realm. That's a want that has multiple steps to it. It's deeply personal. It has a kind of thematic heft. It means something. It would mean something not only to the person involved, but probably it would mean something to a lot of other people as well. So when we talk about the size of the want, you might say, well, winning a lottery ticket is a bigger want than finishing college. Well, is it? It's a lot to ask for. The odds are against you. Like the odds against you winning the lottery ticket are much greater than the odds against you, finishing college if you go about it in a methodical way. But which is really the bigger want, So we need to think about this idea of the scale of these wants, the big wants and the little wants. There could be wants that are sort of medium-sized. Like I really want to try, I don't know, a new recipe that looked really good that I saw in the New York Times. And it just seemed like it would be a really good thing. So now I want to try it. I want to try it. But that means what? Like I want to go to the store and go shopping and get the ingredients. I want to carve out time to, print it out or put it on my iPad so I could have it in the kitchen where I could see it. Maybe I want to invite people over to try it. Like it could have a lot of like smaller wants nestled inside it. The bigger want of like, I really want to successfully try this new recipe is going to incorporate a set of like wants nested within it, right? So you could call those the medium-sized wants. Maybe there's a want like, I want to make a homemade dinner every night this week as opposed to getting takeout. Like you could really sort of think about it like, okay, so that's a medium-sized want. It's certainly a bigger want than I'd like to walk across the room and see if there's anything in the fridge. but it's not as big as, I'd like to devote, I don't know, the next 10 years of my life to becoming a winning triathlete or something, right? We set goals all the time with things we want. So those are the big wants and little wants. So there's a few ways to think about them. This is a somewhat related thing, but it's a little different. So I wanted to call it out as a different kind of want, the fleeting wants and the long-term wants. So instead of talking about size, we're talking about timeline now. So a fleeting want is one that might be like, oh, those boots look really good when that advertisement is in front of me, when I'm looking at my phone. I really want those boots. I really want those boots. But when the ad disappears, I'm not even thinking about the boots anymore because I really don't need a new pair of boots. It's a fleeting want. It's not a want that is part of my identity or has any impact on my life long term. It's fleeting. It comes and goes. But then there are long-term wants, right? There are things, if we're honest with ourselves, that we've wanted for years. Maybe there are things that we started wanting when we were a kid and we still want them. I'm going to just let you guys think about that for a minute. Take a breath. Maybe you want to post it in the comments. Can you relate to things that you've wanted for years? That there might be things that you wanted a long time ago and you still want them. And that doesn't mean you've never gotten them. Maybe it means that that's just something that you're always in pursuit of. You're always in pursuit of some kind of experience or outcome. People want to go skiing and they wanted to go skiing when they were a kid and they learned how to ski and they still want to go skiing and they go skiing their whole lives. It's a long-term want, this want to have this experience of, for some reason, hurtling down a snowy mountain with slippery sticks strapped to your feet. If you like to do it, I salute you. It's not for me, but it's something that a lot of people do want, right? So fleeting wants and long-term wants that have a little bit of staying power or a lot of staying power. See what a perfect example. And forgive me for not knowing who this is. Someone's watching on Facebook, so I don't have their name because they didn't click the little identifying link. But Facebook user, I could not vibe with you more enthusiastically when you share, I want books and I'll never stop wanting them. Who's got overflowing bookshelves to prove that point? I'm sure we all do. All right. So there are things like that, things that are almost part of our identity, right? Like, who would we be if we didn't want books? We wouldn't be us. It seems like it's really intrinsic. So think about that also with the fleeting wants and the long-term wants, right? Some of them are superficial. Some of them have the stickiness of identity, like they are Velcroed to our very souls. Here's a third type of want: positive wants and negative wants. These are very interesting to consider, especially as storytellers, because a positive want is, I want to try this new recipe and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, right, to get it. Like, that's what I want. A negative want might be, I don't like where I am and I wish I were someone else, right? Or I don't like my job and I wish I had a different job, But it's more of a desire to sort of get away from where you are and what you're doing and the conditions of your life than it is actively wanting something better. So even maybe the examples I gave were a little too activated, because someone can say, I want to not be in this bad job that I don't like, full stop. They can just want to not be where they are. And it's kind of a negative want. Like, I don't know what I want, but I know that this isn't it. That's like a simple way to put it, right? Now, I imagine that you can see for yourself that having a negative want is hard to take action about unless you turn it into somehow a positive want. I don't like this. And then what? Well, so then I'm going to want something different. And I have to sort of know what that different thing is in order to take action toward it, right? So positive wants and negative wants are very interesting for storytellers to consider, because many of us, even in real life, when we are pretty good at knowing what we want, might sit down and create characters that are filled with negative wants, and we don't really give them enough positive wants to get them in motion. So I really want you to just bear in mind that there is this idea of positive wants. Hillary has posted a comment that's so pertinent to this. Let me bring it right up, Hillary. Can fears be wants, wanting never to be trapped or shut in a place again? See, that's a really great example of a negative want, right? I don't want this to happen again is a negative want. What's tricky about that, Hillary, is that what do you do about it, right? It's the kind of negative want that we would want to see our hero or fictional character turn into a positive want so that it can turn into an action. I have actually one more type of want that I want to talk about, but I want to return to Hillary's comment here, because what she's raising is how would a want, especially a negative want, be able to be turned into a reason for action. So we're going to come right back to that in a minute. But first, there was a fourth type of want that I wanted to mention, because it's true in real life, it's true of the human condition, and therefore it is true in our fiction. There are conscious wants and there are unconscious wants. Not to get all, Freudian on you, but there are things that we know that we want and think that we want and identify with wanting, but they may not be the whole story. There may be things that we don't let ourselves admit that we want, that we gave up on so long ago that they've become submerged. We're no longer aware. We don't let ourselves be aware of some of the things, and maybe some of the things we want most. There's all kinds of reasons for this. People have different cultural surroundings. They have different upbringings. They've been taught different values. And there's all kinds of rules and regulations in human society. And some of them have to do with telling people that they don't want what they actually do, kind of letting people know what it's okay to want and making certain things not okay to want. So just know that there are conscious wants and unconscious wants in life, and that this complexity of desire, if you will, can exist, and I hope it does exist in your fictional characters as well. So super interesting. So just to review those four types of wants: the big wants and the little wants, the fleeting wants and the long-term wants, the positive wants and the negative wants, the conscious wants and the unconscious wants. There is no end to human wanting. The Buddhists absolutely have it right. Now, let's move on to my second point here. Now that we've really looked at the landscape of desire and wanting and craving and all those words, what is the difference between a want and a motivation, right? Because our talk today started out with this exploration of motivation, why we do what we do, why our characters do what they do. So there's that word do. It's all about action. A want is not a motivation until it inspires action. That's what turns a want into a motivation. So storytellers, you might say, well, my character wants all kinds of things. My character is unhappy with that aspect of their life and this aspect of their lives and this other thing. And, but unless the wanting is inspiring action, it hasn't quite grown up into being a motivation yet. So let's talk about how wants inspire action. I mean, it's kind of simple, but it's not so simple sometimes when we're writing stories and we are trying to activate our characters to do stuff, right? If I see that ad again for those boots, I mean, they're really cute, guys. They're super cute. Actually, if I could decide between this heel and the slightly bigger heel, I probably would have bought them by now. But that's the point, right? My wanting of the boots, fleeting as it may be, keeps returning every time they show me that ad. And if it motivates me to buy them, it has motivated action, right? It becomes a motivation. My desire for the boots motivates me to do something. It could motivate me to do a lot of things. It could motivate me to click on the ad. It could motivate me to see if there's a cheaper place to buy them, if there's a coupon code, if It could motivate me to go into my closet and say, Mary Rose, you have a pair of boots already that are almost exactly like these boots, and that's why you like them so much. You don't need another pair that's so similar, right? It could motivate me to do any number of things. The point is that when it stops just being an internal state and starts to determine what I actually do, it is now motivation, right? My motivation might be to get those boots. I might find myself doing all kinds of things to justify getting those boots, right? I could toss my old boots in the trash. I could, see if I've got a little extra money stashed away that I put aside for something special. I could just make all kinds of rationalizations, but I'm taking action to get those boots. If your goal or your want was to pass that algebra test that we talked about a little while ago, what might you do about it? Are you just going to say, wow, I really hope I pass the test? Well, that's wanting, but it's not the same as studying. It's not the same as doing your homework, cracking open the textbook, doing the practice tests, getting a tutor, sitting with your friends and seeing if you can help each other figure out the hard parts, asking a teacher for help. There's so many actions one could take in the pursuit of the wanting to pass the test. So now what you have is a motivated student, every teacher's dream. So I imagine you see the difference. Now, if someone wants to win the lottery, but they don't buy a lottery ticket, good luck winning. The odds are already very much stacked against you. But you do have to be in it to win it. So at the very least, if you want to win the lottery, you have to go out and buy a ticket. It inspired you to action. You had a motive. The reason you bought the ticket is because you want to win. You want to feel at least you've got a chance of winning. So you have a reason for going to the store and getting the lottery ticket. Likewise, if I want a snack, but I don't even have the gumption to get up and go see what's in the kitchen, I'm not going to get a snack, am I? I have to do something about it to make my want turn into reality. So we talked about the different types of wants. And I just wanted to point out that any kind of big want or long-term want is not going to be satisfied by taking a single action. There's no way that we're going to get a long-term or large-scale goal accomplished by just taking one action. All right, maybe the lottery, which is, could be a big long-term goal for many people, but it only requires buying the ticket. It's actually quite a passive little exercise, so it doesn't really qualify as much of a goal, in my opinion. But let's go back to the goal of wanting to be the first person in your family to finish college. That's a long-term goal. It's a big goal. It has meaning, but it's not going to happen with a single action. Think of all of the steps that someone would have to take in order to achieve that goal. All of the actions that they would have to take, going back to, perhaps when they're in high school, planning ahead, getting mentorship, keeping an eye on their grades, learning about higher education. Maybe there's nobody around who's been to college and they need to seek mentorship to get guided into the experience, from a blank slate. There's applications, there's campus tours, there's scholarship applications to fill out, there's interviews, so many things just to get in. And then once you're in, there's like 4 years worth of steps, tasks, actions. And the truth is that all of those many, 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 many actions can be motivated by a single long-term want, which is to get that degree, right? They will always be like, do I feel like doing this right now? Wouldn't I rather sleep in? Wouldn't I rather hang out with my friends? But then there's that big goal saying, I'm your motivation. I'm the reason you're doing what you're doing. And so our hero is going to be likely to stick with it. But each of those little tasks, from getting up on time to make a morning class to, finishing a paper to, do all the things, each one of those is also a little bit of a goal, right? So we're starting to see now that there's a structure. I love that word, structure. Inside of big wants, of smaller wants. It's like a to-do list. If you've ever made a to-do list, I hope you have. Some people might not need it, but I know that I need to do it, or I'll forget what I have to do every day. But sometimes you have a to-do list, like, make dinner might be on the to-do list. And then that's a task. And then it has subtasks. Well, plan what you're going to make, assemble the ingredients, at X time of the afternoon, wash the potatoes. Like, you have to sort of plan it ahead, right? And you break it down into subtasks. And sometimes those subtasks get broken down even further into subtasks. This is how long-term, large-scale projects get done. And it's the same with storytelling. We want to turn our wants into motivations, right? So that we want to turn all those desires into actions. But the actions also like nestle inside each other depending on how big of a want it is. Now, this is all going to bear fruit when I talk about story structure. There's one more ingredient that we have to add, because when we are trying to invent enough wants within wants within wants to motivate a character in, let's say, a novel length work, we have a missing ingredient, and we're just about to add it, which is obstacles. Now, everything I've said about wants actually kind of applies to obstacles too. There are big obstacles and small obstacles. There are fleeting obstacles and long-term obstacles, right? There are conscious obstacles and unconscious obstacles. It's all the same. And there's a reason. It's because when someone's taking action towards something that they want, and we put an obstacle in their way as a storyteller, it's commensurate, right? It's the obstacle to that action. It's not a random obstacle. I mean, it might be, but for the most part, we're trying to, create obstacles that are commensurate with the action. I used to do a lot of school visits before the pandemic, when there were lots of live school visits. Now I'm glad that they're coming back again. And I always used to do improv with the kids that I saw in school visits. And I would have them improvise a scene. And there was always a kid in every class who would, the minute he got the microphone in front of him to add the next thing that happened to the story that the kids were improvising, sort of line by line, he would just say, and then a meteorite landed on Earth and killed everything. Like, he would bring the biggest obstacle in, like, it right within the first 3 or 4 lines of the story. And it's like, end scene. The story is now over. That's not what we want to have happen when we're writing a novel, right? We don't want to throw the big obstacle in when our hero's just warming up, getting their little wants squared away, because the story's over. So that's what I mean about making the obstacles commensurate with what the hero's up to at that minute. Now, but let me talk about obstacles, right? So if you've got wants, this sort of constant churning of wants, small wants, medium wants, and little wants, and you've got obstacles hitting, like sort of popping up each time your hero takes an action toward getting one of these wants, whether it's a small action, a medium size, or a big action, now you've got a consequence, because as soon as the obstacle appears, what does the hero have to do? They have to take another action. And so what you see now, the physics of this, if you will, is that the energy of the hero wanting, which is then turned into the energy of them taking action, which then confronts the opposing energy of the obstacle, which will then generate some fresh action from the hero, because now they've got to deal with the obstacle in order to what? Pursue what they want, because they're not quitting. No. They're going to keep going after what they want. This is like a perpetual motion machine. Like, if this were a combustion engine, like, you just are putting gas in it. So that collision between the hero motivated, doing something about what they want to get what they want, encountering an obstacle, and then having to say, okay, that didn't work, let me do something else, generates a new action. This is like, it's like it's the engine that generates story. Now, when we talk about novel length works, and we talk about the second act of a novel length work as being like more than half of the length of it. And if you're a writer and you're like, oh man, second acts are hard, I don't know how to fill them up with stuff. If you set that little flywheel in motion, you're going to have more ideas than you know what to do with, because your motivated hero is going to be taking action Obstacles are going to arise. Your hero is going to have to take fresh action in response to that obstacle. And guess what? A fresh obstacle will arise. It generates story energy. So that, that's like the key to generating story. Now, so it's sort of a little ongoing combustion engine, right? And this is where novels come from. So I want to talk a little bit about this idea of what we call in the Path of the Storyteller program, the mission, because this is how I can connect what I'm talking about today to some nitty gritty of story structure. The mission of a story is the big want, the long-term want, the big serious goal, the objective, whatever word you want to choose, that the hero of the book embraces or has thrust upon them sometimes, right at the end of the first act or maybe like the beginning of the second act. And in a fairly straightforward construction of a story, this might be 20% of the way in. There are lots of ways to structure a story. Sometimes we can flip the order of things and have a little fun with conventional story structure. But for, argument's sake today, since I'm trying to teach this and keep it simple, in a conventionally structured story that is the first act, second act, and third act, you're going to get to that embrace of the mission pretty early on in the book. That is what the book is going to be about. That's what the story is about. The story is about this character undertaking this challenge to get to this objective, right? So you need a motivated hero who has converted at least the thing that they've decided that they want into a plan of action. And we know that the second act is going to be most of the book. So this mission, as we call it, this big plan of action, this big motivated action, has to have some clarity about why the hero is undertaking it, first and foremost, right? The want has to be there. We have to understand why this is important. And it also has to be the kind of thing that can be broken into lots of little wants, little motivations, little subtasks, because those are going to be the chapters and the scenes of the second act. Everything that we see your main character undertake is going to be one little task off the to-do list of achieving the mission. And so that means that if we crack open your manuscript to really any point, especially in the second act, and I point at the page and I say, okay, so what is your character doing in this scene, and what is their motivation for doing it? I want you to be able to tell me. And this is tricky for a lot of writers. Now, what makes it tricky? They're a little fuzzy about what the mission might be. They are trying to animate their hero with negative wants instead of positive wants. Or what happens a lot is that they have their hero in a state of wanting, but they have not converted the want into action. So they're stuck in wanting without motivation. And I want to go back to Hillary's comment from before that I said I was going to return to. So Hillary said, "Can fears be wants, wanting never to be trapped or shut in a place again?" So Hillary, now you can see that a hero who has this kind of negative want, they've had a bad experience, they're triggered by this, they know they never want to let that happen again. That's a very powerful, desire. It's a very powerful objective. But how might this character turn that into positive wanting and turn it into action so that it jumps the hurdle from simply being a want and actually turns into a motivation, right? Want plus action is motivation. So a fear of something might be and as I said, a -1, but it hasn't risen to the role of motivation. And as I hope I'm making clear today, without motivation, you don't have a story, because it means that your hero is not doing anything about all the things that maybe you think they want. But if it hasn't been converted through action, it hasn't really, it's not a story yet. Now, I can look at this another way as well, which is that some writers might have a manuscript full of a hero doing stuff because they've been taught or told that the hero has to be active. And I might look at that and a scene, and I see, oh, this hero is very busy. Look at all the things the hero was doing. And then I'll say, okay, but what's the hero's motivation for doing these things? What are they trying to accomplish? How is the wanting underneath this scene connected as a subtask or subtask to the larger task of fulfilling the mission? So both of those things really need to work. Like, the hero needs to be active, but the action also needs to be motivated. And the actions have to be in that kind of nested logic. Excuse me, guys. You've never tried to talk nonstop for an hour. Well, if you've ever done it, you know how easy it is to get dry. So your hero needs to be motivated. They need to be active, and the things that they're motivated to do need to be connected in a logical way, a cause and effect way, to this sort of larger, long scale goal, which we call the mission. So all of that stuff has to be ticked off your writer's to-do list as you invent scenes for your hero. Okay. All right. So let me wrap up, and then I'm going to look at the other comments and questions that came in. A couple did while we were talking. All right. So that's your to-do list. Let me just review it here. You've got to think about what your characters want. You've got to ask yourself that question. You ask what they want in small ways, medium ways, and large ways, right? So you can use little wants, like needing a snack, to animate a little scene, right? But it's also going to be connected to the big wants. So that's the second thing on your to-do list. Make sure the smaller wants are tied into the big wants, like subtasks are tied into accomplishing a larger task. All right. The third thing on your to-do list is to put your characters in motion. Make them do stuff, right? Make them act in pursuit of their wants. The next thing on your to-do list is to don't forget to put the obstacles in their path, and let those obstacles motivate new action. That is what is going to generate the energy that keeps your story moving forward. And then the last thing on your to-do list is to rinse and repeat this process that I just described, knowing what your character wants, tying the smaller wants into the larger wants. Let your characters take action, throw obstacles in the path, let them take fresh action in response to the obstacles. This is it. This is the wheel of story turning all throughout your novel, particularly throughout your second act. All right. So that's what I mean by rinse and repeat. You're not just going to do that dance once. You're going to do it scene after scene after scene after scene for more than half of your book. All right. So I'm going to end by nerding out a little bit on Latin roots. Everyone's favorite topic. I know it's one of my favorite topics. I just want to talk about this word motivation for a second, because the Latin root mo means to move. That's what it means, right? If you think about the words that have that mo in them, there's motion, there's mobilize, motor, even motor has it. Even the word emotion has that Latin root in it, because strong emotions move us. We feel moved by them. It's an internal movement. And so this is what we really mean when we say, what's my motivation? What's my character's motivation? What is the cause of their motion? What's making them move? All right. What's making your characters move in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term? What do they do right? What is their movement? How are their actions motivated? What is it that's making them do what they do? And how does that movement fit into the big picture of the big action toward their big goals? That is what adds up to a story. I've often used the word causality in my talks about story structure. I use the word causality a lot in a small self-paced course that I offer called Making Scenes, that is all about this topic of how we use motivated action to structure scenes. And I just want you to know that causality is really what makes a story a story. Motion alone won't do it. Wanting alone won't do it, right? But the motivated action will do it. That structure alone will make something feel like a story. But I have one more kind of important point I want to make. It'll make a story. It'll make something that feels like a story. But it's not going to make a great story unless it has meaning and it has transformation. That's what makes a really great and satisfying story. If all of this motion, all of this motivated action ends up creating for the main character a journey of meaningful transformation. It's not just about me getting my boots. It's not just about getting a snack. It's about something that the reader will feel really meant something, that's something they can relate to, something that's emotionally and psychologically true, something that tells the truth about what it means to be human. All right. It takes a lot of work for a hero of a story to get from A to Z, right? To travel that whole journey of tasks and subtasks and sub-subtasks, all those actions taken in pursuit of all of the things. It's so much work for the hero. And guess what? It's so much work for you as a writer to think of all that stuff and to write it. So we don't want that long journey to be trivial. We don't want to write a 300-page novel that, depicts the efforts of one woman who does not need a new pair of boots to get a new pair of boots. It's trivial, right? I mean, I'm making light of it, but this is kind of an important point. These tools of story structure will make something feel like a story, but if it's a trivial story, it's not great storytelling either. So that's the last thing I want to encourage you to do, is all the way through really think about what it is that your characters want in the deeper level, in a meaningful way, not in a trivial way. That is where great storytelling comes from. As you guys can see, the journey of the writer is very like this. We have big goals. We want to finish our novel. We have little goals. Oh, I just want to write a page today, and our little goals will add up to our big goals. So every time we talk about story structure, I know that there's some part of each one of us that's like, yes, it's just like that for me as well. And that's a good thing. It helps you really understand what your hero is going through. Now, let me see what we've got here in the comments. I've got lots of hellos. Great to see you, Hillary. Great to see you, Cynthia. Great to see you, Jaren. That's so nice. Anne is here. Constanza's here. That's all great. Anne's got a comment here that I would like to share with you all. Anne has posted, maybe you could say we're offering vicarious ones to the reader. They keep turning pages to see if Ross and Rachel are going to get together. Anne, as always, you have put your finger astutely on something that's very true. There are many, many examples of stories that revolve around aspirational themes. And what are aspirational themes? An aspirational theme is, yes, finding the love of your life and riding off happily into the sunset. All romances have this kind of aspirational theme. We don't often see love stories that are about two people who are not very well suited to each other getting married for practical reasons and having a kind of a middling relationship. The end. It's just right. It's not what we're aspiring to. It's not what the reader's wanting. So as you say, it's vicarious ones for the reader. There's also a lot of books, successful books, that are set in glamorous worlds. Whether you're thinking about very successful YA books like Gossip Girls. There's a very successful, wonderful YA trilogy by Jenlyn Barnes called The Inheritance Games, about a girl who finds out that she's potentially, one of the heirs to this vast fortune. So she ends up living in this fantastic house as they try to sort out, how this fortune is going to get ultimately distributed. There's stories like James Bond, that travels in this glamorous world of espionage and fancy cars and, beautiful people. And so you can see this element of aspirational content in a lot of very compelling, audience friendly fiction, movies, television shows, right? It's the reader or the viewer is getting a look behind the curtain. They're getting like a peek at what it's like to be in this rarefied world. I think sometimes like there's reality television shows that also offer this sense of giving a peek inside a world that the viewer's like, well, that's not my world, but I really am interested in knowing what it's like to be in there. But these wants that that are aspirational are also based in the universal human drives. And so that's when we talk about all the ceaseless wanting that humans do. It's one of the reasons that even someone who's, of modest means and is likely to stay that way might still be fascinated by watching a show or reading a book about, lifestyles of the rich and famous. It's aspirational. And this is part of the human insatiable appetite for wanting. Great observation, Anne. And Anne talks about tragic heroes, right? So this is going into another nuance. Well, sometimes heroes want the wrong things, right? And so Anne says, thinking about Macbeth now, tragic heroes want things, but I guess big things that we hope they don't get. Well, we might hope they don't get them, but they really want them. And this is very true of the tragic hero figure, right? They're just wanting the wrong things. They're wanting the wrong things, and they're trying really hard to get them. And so our complex stance, as Anne notes, our slightly more complex stance as a reader is that we're sort of like rooting for them because we're engaged in the storytelling and maybe the character is somewhat sympathetic, but then we also have a more judicious opinion that it would be bad if they got what they wanted. Two of the great tragic heroes of sort of modern storytelling in film and TV, in my opinion, are Michael Corleone in The Godfather and the character of Walter White in the series Breaking Bad. Both of these are examples of just superb storytelling with a kind of a tragic hero in the center. And anybody who's seen The Godfather knows that, it's kind of hard not to root for Al Pacino. Like, we don't want him to meet a terrible end, do we? Like, isn't there part of us that's sort of hoping he's going to get away with it all? But then on the other hand, we know that what he wants is like a race to the bottom, right? He's on a downward spiral. And so in a sense, it makes the moral implications of these stories a little richer. It makes the experience of the viewer a little more complicated. It requires a little bit more of us because we ourselves become, in a sense, implicated in debating within ourselves. Like, well, am I for him or am I against him? And, this is why we have tragic stories that are thousands of years old that still move and fascinate us. It's a really sophisticated type of inquiry into what it means to be human. And that's what makes stories last. Thanks for your great observations, Anne. I really appreciate it. All right, gang, let me wrap up for now. This has been a fun conversation, and I hope whatever the rest of your day holds, maybe there's a snack, possibly there's a new pair of boots, maybe there's something a little more rich and meaningful. I hope one of the things you want to do today is spend a little bit of time on your work in progress. That is a small, achievable goal. Your desire to keep growing and developing as a writer should motivate you to take these small actions. They will add up over time. This I can promise you. Thank you so much for coming. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you aren't already. Please, if you like this content, give it a thumbs up. If you are looking for the link to that free download, let me just put it up for you one more time. At pathofthestoryteller.com/challenge. It's a collection of writing prompts, and I think you'll find them really useful, really fun. And I look forward to hearing how it goes for you. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. And until then, happy writing.